You haven't missed that many Bhagavatam classes because we've been with Mother Devaki.
And I try to watch too when
Yeah, so you're all caught up. So even yesterday, did you get a chance to?
I didn't actually yesterday. Yesterday was kind of a little screwy days for me.
That's okay.
I got up late, you know.
Yeah, I live my life like that now with the baby. I'm just every day is a screwy
I
day.
just got a late start yesterday. It bothers me. I don't like that because I like to set my day up nicely. You know, get up at a certain time, shower, and
Yes, it's very nice to have a good regulation, but yeah, I myself included.
no, I'm not beating
Yeah.
myself up for it.
Yeah.
You know, I just don't like it.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way, but now every day is like that for me with the baby. It's a whole new lifestyle. I have to somehow build up my regulative prowess to be able to, and the baby also has to. He's factored in the equation now, and we just haven't figured it out yet. But no problem.
I'll finally figure it out, which you never really will.
Yeah.
They'll be leaving the home.
Yes, and that's also part of the things. The material world is very interesting dynamics.
Yes, it is.
How it all works.
Especially Kali Yuga.
Yes, but the good news is it's easiest time for us to make spiritual advancement, and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam is the one of the easiest ways to cleanse ourselves of this contamination of this age and actually get something much better instead, which is love of God. But it's a process, and we have to regularly do these things. And you're doing it. We're trying to do it here, and
In Kali Yuga, it seems it's the easiest and the hardest.
yeah. Well,
Because the contradictions of.
yeah, easiest to make spiritual advancement, but at the same time, there's so many.
Simple, not necessarily easy.
Yeah. It's always going to be difficult. In Satya Yuga, it's difficult because you got to, engage in the meditation process for many thousands of years. In Treta Yuga, it's also it's always a little difficult, but it's always made appropriately easy, but depending on the age. So Kali Yuga, externally, there's so many difficulties and faults, and it's crazy, but at the same time, it's glorious because it's so disturbing. It's very easy to shift the attention to the Lord and then participate in the process. He makes everything very easy for us in Kali Yuga. So actually, this is one of the easy processes. We just have to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. Yesterday, we talked about Krishna. Well, let me actually read the exact verse so I can get you the most context. Oh, it was a very nice. I was talking about the Lord was pacified after he arrived in Dwarka. And then it said the Lord was pacified after killing those kings who were burdensome to the earth. They were puffed up with their military strength, their horses, elephants, chariots, infantry, etc. He himself was not a party in the fight. He simply created hostility between the powerful administrators, and they fought amongst themselves. He was like the wind which causes friction between bamboos and sows sparks of fire. Beautiful analogy. Prabhupada was talking about so many things about how the false ego, actually it was interesting because Mother Devaki was just talking about the false ego and has that book on the false ego. How the false ego, the way it works, it's actually the Lord's system, and He's acting as the wind, and He'll engage it if you are participating in the false ego. What'll end up happening is you'll cross someone else's false ego, and enough friction between the bamboo, boom, the wind will push it. The Lord will push it because everyone has the false ego, and next thing you know, you have fire. And it was compared to all of the political leaders in Kali Yuga, modern day. It's very prominent in the age of quarrel. You see this. I mean, in this country, it's never been more so divided, and it only keeps getting more and more like that. And that's why there's false egos on all kinds of sides, and corruption, and all kinds of crap on all kinds of sides. And so it's just inevitable. And this is the Lord's system. When one acts under the false ego, it becomes a burden to the earth, and itself there will be a fire to cancel it out. And so that's likely to come. But he did this here in Battle of Kurukshetra. There were so many false ego kings. Yes, I'm powerful. Look at my military. I'm this, I'm that. Dhritarashtra, Duryodhana, all these things became inflamed, and it was just the Lord's perfect system. And he was an advocate for peace. he was always trying to give the right, but at some point, when all good arguments fail, all right, stand up and fight. Then there's Bhagavad Gita, and then there's the Battle of Kurukshetra, and almost everyone died, except the Pandavas. But this is ultimately the Lord's plan for purification. So anyhow, he was pacified after this, and he entered Dwarka. Now where we are today, before we continue on, let us glorify the Gurus. Maybe Tanma, you can be the scroller today. All our Mangala Charana prayers, invoking the mercy of the Guru Parampara. Let's continue with our making advancement through the Bhagavatam. This is very purifying to hear, and also it will become imperative at one point. Maybe may not even be in this lifetime, but it may be to also to share the Bhagavatam at some point. Like actually, it's interesting. I went through the Bhagavatam twice, and this time around, now actually reciting, sharing, and openly sharing the Bhagavatam, this has been the most purifying read of the Bhagavatam yet for me, to actually participate in sharing the Bhagavatam and draw wisdom from my previous experiences in this Bhakti Yoga system, but especially with the Bhagavatam. So I would recommend, if you, at some point, after hearing the Bhagavatam, that you take it upon yourself to share the Bhagavatam. Like maybe Michael will have children one day, and be perfect time. Grandpa Craig is sharing the Bhagavatam, with the children or something like this, or and so on. I mean, I have a child now, and I look forward to when he's old enough and I can help bring him through the Bhagavatam, and things like that. And he's in Bhagavatam class, so that would be very nice. But anyhow, let us read. Sa esha naralokesmin navatirna swamayaya remestri ratnakutasto Bhagavan prakrito yata Saha, he, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Esha, all these, Naraloke, on this planet of human beings, Asmin, on this, Avatirna, having appeared, Swa, personal, internal, Mayaya, causeless mercy, Reme, enjoyed. Sri Ratna, woman who is competent to become a wife of the Lord. Kutastaha, among. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Prakrita, mundane. Yatha, as if it were. So today's subject matter is there's more than meets the eye, especially in regard to the pastimes of the Lord. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, out of his causeless mercy, appeared on this planet by his internal potency and enjoyed himself amongst competent women as if he were engaging in mundane affairs. And Prabhupada says, purport, the Lord married and lived like a householder. This is certainly like a mundane affair, but when we learn that he married 16,108 wives and lived with them separately in each and every palace, certainly it is not mundane. It's super mundane. Therefore, the Lord, living as a householder amongst his competent wives, is never mundane, and his behavior with them is never to be understood as mundane sex relation. The women who became the wives of the Lord are certainly not ordinary women, because to get the Lord as one's husband is the result of many, many millions of births, tapasya or austerity. When the Lord appears on different lokas or planets, or on this planet of human beings, he displays his transcendental pastimes just to attract the conditioned souls to become his eternal servitors, friends, parents, and lovers, respectively in the transcendental world, where the Lord eternally reciprocates such exchanges of service. Service is pervertedly represented in the material world and broken untimely, resulting in sad experience. The illusion-living being, conditioned by material nature, cannot understand out of ignorance that all our relations here in the mundane world are temporary and full of inebrieties. Such relations cannot help us be happy perpetually, but if the same relation is established with the Lord, then we are transferred to the transcendental world after leaving this material body and become eternally related with him in the relation we desire. So there's a gulf of difference in how the Lord exchanges pastimes and how we exchange pastimes in this world. The same activities might be there. There's a set of happiness in married life. And the Lord's happiness and his wife's happinesses, there's so much transcendental exchange, and it's so nice, and it seems very pleasing. But the difference is, when you exchange the relationship with the Lord, it's an eternal process. And when you exchange your relationship in the mundane world, it's a temporary process, and it breaks, and it causes only sadness and grief. And this happens over and over and over again. Craig was just alluding to the, the sadness of like watching a child grow up and then they leave the house. There's a certain level of sadness, almost like the relation. But this is actually the material world, what it happens. Because we create a false ego relationship with something that is not factual and is not eternal. Ultimately, it's a dramatic performance, as Prabhupada states in Devaki Devidasi the other day was quoting. It's a dramatic performance that ultimately the curtain closes, show is over, and then a new show begins, and it's over and over again. But actually, if one directs one's relationship potential towards the Lord and works on the process of doing that, you can get the end goal where that loving relationship is established, and that's eternal. There's no end to that type of relationship. And actually, that's why the Lord sets up all of material existence. All of existence is to establish relationships. And for those who get the wrong idea, maybe they want to be the God, the controller, the enjoyer. There's a whole dramatic stage for them, the material world, where curtain opens and then they get to pretend to be the enjoyer, and then boom, they realize they're not, and case closed. Over and over and over and over and over again.
Even Shakespeare said, life's a stage and all the people are the players.
Yes. I mean, he's a great literary, or how do you say, great dramatist maybe. But anyone who's a little what's that word, perceptive of this material world, they'll see the great you become very poetic and be like, yes, look at this stage. And Prabhupada gives the same reference. This is He's just a nonsensical stage performance. Over and over and over again, we do like this. But you see here, Prabhupada is saying with these women, it appears they're going through a stage performance, but theirs gets to go on eternally, forever and ever and ever, and only increasing in pleasure. There's no end. The curtain doesn't close. It just opens wider and wider and wider and wider. So this is our unfortunate position. These exchanges, these relationships are pervertedly represented in the material world, because we are not ultimately we don't have good information as to who we actually are. We assume we're this body, of this family, of this lineage, and so on. And we attach to so many things and there's a false ego that's kind of dictating all of these things. But ultimately, the real ego is that we're a servant of the Lord. And if we shift our relationship potential in that way, we have an eternal position. Now, Prabhupada continues.
Prabhu,
Yes.
that service is permanently represented in the material world and broken at a time, resulting in the sad experience. What is that?
So the real relationship, there are different levels of service with the Lord. You can be, what's it say here? Dasya.
Friend or a servant or a
Yes, you can be a servant, a friend, a parent, or a lover. These are the progressions of relationships with the Lord. But what ends up happening is, because we don't put that service towards the Lord, we ultimately try to put it towards other things and try to be the enjoyer or the Lord, in essence, of this material world. And that's the perverted reflection. And what ultimately happens is it causes the sad experience. Because anything that we try to lord it over in maybe in the form of having this relationship, or even of service, it ends. What's that sound? Tordal? Yes. So this is our destination if we continue like this. Just sad experience after sad experience. But because we're in ignorance, we don't realize it. We're illusioned. And we don't understand our ignorance. But ultimately, this is what the Bhagavatam does. It's going to enlighten us. And I mean, not just the Bhagavatam. You have the Acharya's very powerful words and the manifestation of his heart via his purports. And we, it's our great mercy that we can even go through this and take an honest look at this. Now, we'll continue. The women amongst whom he lived as their husband are not, therefore, women of this mundane world, but are eternally related with him as transcendental wives, a position which they attained by perfection of devotional service. That is their competency. The Lord is Param Brahma, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Conditioned souls seek after perpetual happiness in all places, not only on this earth, but also on other planets throughout the universe, because constitutionally a spiritual spark, as he is, can travel to any part of God's creation. But being conditioned by the material modes, he tries to travel in space by spacecraft and so fails to reach his destination. We're very interested and we're very attached to the material nature. So instead of going the appropriate way via the transmigration process, we try to be the Lord and Master and Surveyor. So I'm going to take this material body with me. And so we make a spacecraft, or we make this, that, and the other, and then off we go, Sputnik, or all these things, or maybe many fake Apollo missions, or all kinds of things that they've done. Anyway, he tries to travel in space by spacecraft and so fails to reach his destination. The law of gravitation is binding upon him like the shackles of a prisoner. By other processes, he can reach anywhere, but even if he reaches the highest planet, he cannot attain that perpetual happiness for which he is searching life after life. When he comes to his senses, however, he seeks after Brahman happiness, knowing it for certain that unlimited happiness, which he is seeking, is never attainable in the material world. You can look anywhere. You can go the farthest depths of the Himalayas, the farthest depths. You can try and find every little secret tunnel, secret thing you can find in this material world, secret treasure. You're not going to find your happiness here. Whereas the happiness, it's in the spiritual world, and ultimately it's in relation with the Lord. Now, if the Lord gets to come here, or if the Lord does come here, if you do all kinds of, you could say tapasyas or austerities, bhajan, to try and really worship the Lord, He will reciprocate. And even if you are still in the material world, He'll come to you. And that's what He does. Maybe you'll get born as, as a Vrajabasi, a cowherd boy, a gopi, anything like this. Maybe, you get to see the Lord in a new incarnation. We just saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and many associates get to saw the Lord in that way. Who knows what the next incarnation of the Lord looks like? We have no idea. We can't fathom. But no matter what, if you work on your relationship to the Lord, it never goes in vain, and eventually you will get to meet the Lord by your process. And that relationship is eternal. That relationship is ever increasing, ever wonderful, and there's no ultimate sadness in that relationship. It's only ever increasing happiness. So,
blissful anxiety.
Yes, right now we have, even in that so-called anxiety of that relationship, it is blissful throughout the whole process. But we're not there. We're still trying to focus on the relationship with our wives, with our children, with the other living entities of this material world. How can I become a master/servant in these relationships? But ultimately, these aren't the relationships we should focus on. We should focus on, oh, this girl has a pretty body. It's only skin deep, If you peel back the skin makes everything look kind of attractive. But if you peel back the skin, it's a horror show, actually. Yes.
What was the story regarding that I don't know if it was a prostitute or not or whatever, but she took laxatives and
Yes.
all that, and
Yeah.
really
There was
became ugly.
Yes.
And said it's just flesh.
Yeah. So that's a very nice story. I can tell it quickly. So there was maybe there was a man who was very, very interested in a woman. Maybe she was a prostitute, a beautiful woman. Maybe that doesn't matter so much, but a beautiful woman, and a man was very attracted to her. And for whatever reason, he approached her and wanted to have her to enjoy with her. And for whatever reason, she said, "Okay, give me 3 days time, and I will reveal to you what you want to enjoy. I will give you your enjoyment that you're seeking." So in 3 days' time, the man met with her, and he was very excited, very eager. Oh, I finally have the girl of my dreams. I'm going. But in that 3 days' time, she took all kinds of laxatives, what ended up happening is she was expelling so much of her bodily fluids, which ultimately what were making her beautiful. So much poop was coming out, and maybe even you could say, throw up, vomit, all kinds of nasty things are there. And she put it all in one bucket for him. And then 3 days later, he meets with her, and she's waiting there for him with her nasty bucket. And he's looking around, where is this beauty, And she's like, here I am. We've met. And he's horrified, why do you look like this? You look pale, you look, your hair is thin, everything is, you're not beautiful anymore. What have you done? And she's like, but I've given, everything is in here for you. And she presents him the bucket. And so he's, flabbergasted by this. But actually it teaches the lesson. This is what the beauty is. It's not we're so thinking, it's these fluids, working in the body, the way the food is being digested, everything that creates the beauty. But actually, you get sick or you take a bunch of laxatives or this like that, the beauty fades actually. So it's meant to teach us what is actually, it's an illusion of beauty. We think, oh, it's beauty. It's a very temporary situation, and it's manifested by certain conditions of proper digestion and all these things. And next thing you know, you have this beauty has arisen. But these are all material combinations, and then they're going to be gone. So anyway, that's what we don't realize. But the Lord is ever beautiful, ever fresh. And actually you are too, in your spiritual, what's called your swarup, your own form, your own spiritual form. But we're not even looking for that at all. We're completely in this dream world, looking only for these dream things. But ultimately, anyone who's perceptive of this world realizes that it can't yield the happiness that we all want. So really, we have really no better option than to appeal to the Lord, appeal to the perceived controller. Because maybe we don't even have realization of the Lord. Maybe we have some little faith, but we don't have any maybe direct surety due to our lack of, you could say, position. So anyhow, this is why we take to the bhakti process, to try and discover more and more about the Lord, and trying to discover more and more about what can really satisfy us, and what is He looking for. And guess what? He's just looking for a relationship. He's looking for what everyone else is looking for, but He's trying to establish the right position for us, instead of us, trying to do it the wrong way. So anyhow, where did we end here? It's never attainable in the material world. As such, the Supreme Being Parabrahman certainly does not seek his happiness anywhere in the material world, nor can his paraphernalia of happiness be found in the material world. He is not impersonal, because he is the leader and Supreme Being amongst innumerable living beings. He cannot be impersonal. He is exactly like us, and he has all the propensities of an individual living and being in fullness. He marries exactly like us, but his marriage is neither mundane nor limited by our experience in the conditioned state. His wives therefore appear like mundane women, but factually they are all transcendental, liberated souls, perfect manifestations of internal energy. So it's the difference, we try to do so many things in this material world. I want to have a nice house, I have a nice relationship, I want to have all these things. All this could be done with the Lord. All these things, same things, all these same wonderful activities. But here it's perverted and it ends in sadness. But with the Lord, it never has to end. And actually it gets sweeter and sweeter and sweeter. And He's only capable of preserving that eternal relationship. Not us, because we're infinitesimal. We're completely dependent on Him, and if we try and separate ourselves from Him, like a spark jumping out of fire, extinguished. So this is our position. So let's not extinguish ourselves. We're jumping out of the fire. The supreme eternal fire is ready. God is always. Even myself, I don't know how many times I've been approached by someone in my life trying to tell me about Jesus. I saw some bumper sticker yesterday trying to bring me closer to Jesus. God is always, coming. It's not like nobody's heard of God before. Oh, it's unfair. Why wouldn't He leave me here? He's always, come on, God. Everyone is really, even no matter how barbaric your civilization is. And some races and cultures are much more barbaric than others. I'm not going to say which, but it's like that. But everyone has some God. Everyone has, God is in the equation. The Lord is trying to pull everybody towards Him, but who's actually taking? That's the issue. Anyway. Udama bhava pishunama laval guhasa.
Udama bhava pishunama laval guhasa.
Vridava loka nihato marano piyasam.
Vridava loka nihato marano piyasam.
Samuhya chapa majahat pramadottamastha.
Samuhya chapa majahat pramadottamastha.
Yasyendriyam vimatitum kuhaker nasheku.
Yasyendriyam
So you guys aren't used to that meter. Udama,
Udama.
very grave.
Very grave.
Bhava,
Bhava.
Expression.
Expression.
Pishuna,
Pishuna.
exciting.
Exciting.
Amala,
Amala.
spotless.
Spotless.
Valguhasa,
Valguhasa.
beautiful smiling.
Beautiful smile.
Vrida,
Vrida.
corner of the eye.
Corner of the eye.
Avaloka, looking. Nihata, conquered. Madana,
Madana.
Cupid. Or Amadana, the greatly tolerant Shiva.
Or Amadana, the greatly tolerant.
Because it ends in a vowel before, it could have, like Niyamagraha, it has the dual meaning. So it can mean that word or the opposite of that. So, api, also, yasam, whose, samuhya, being overpowered by, chapam, bows, ajahat, gave up, pramada, woman who maddens, uttama, of high grade, ta, all, yasya, whose, indriyam, senses, vimatitum, to perturb, kuhakai, by magical feats, na, never, sheku, was able. Although the queen's beautiful smiles and furtive, I'll have to Google that word. Furtive, attempting to avoid notice or attention, like a secret, typically because of guilt or a belief that discovery would lead to trouble. So, although the queen's beautiful smiles and furtive glances were all spotless and exciting, and although they could conquer Cupid himself by making him give up his bow, it's bow, not bow, his bow in frustration, and although even the tolerant Shiva could fall victim to them, still, despite all their magical feats and attractions, they could not agitate the senses of the Lord. So let's see what Prabhupada has to say. He has a lot to say. Purport. The path of salvation, or the path going back to Godhead, always forbids the association of women, and the complete Sanatan Dharma or Varnashram Dharma scheme forbids or restricts association with women. How, then, can one be accepted as the Supreme Personality of Godhead who is addicted to more than 16,000 wives? That could be a question there. This question may be relevantly raised by inquisitive persons really anxious to know about the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord. And to answer such questions, the sages at Naimisharanya have discussed the transcendental character of the Lord in this and in the following verses. It is clear herein that the feminine attractive features which can conquer Cupid, the feminine attractive features which can conquer Cupid, or even the supermost tolerant Lord Shiva, could not conquer the senses of the Lord. Cupid's business is to invoke mundane lust. The whole universe is moving, being agitated by Cupid's arrow. Cupid is like, there's a god called, he says Cupid because it's well known in the Western world, Cupid. But Kandarpa is the god of love, and he's kind of the presiding deity which attracts man to woman, woman to man.
Shoots an arrow into your heart.
Yes.
Makes you fall.
But actually, it's interesting. The Greek Cupid, with the bow and the heart bow, and he actually comes from Kandarpa of the Hindu pantheon.
No, Kamdev is the same thing.
Yes, Kamadev, same thing. But he invokes mundane lust, and he attracts us to the others. And there's many things. Like the woman's eyes and eyebrows, all these things, just the making the eye contact, boom, Cupid is acting like this. That's why it's actually that's actually why married women, they put the red dot in the forehead. It draws the attention to the dot. Why? So you don't make connection with the eyes, because making connection with the eyes is where Cupid's does his work. So it's actually recommended, say you're in brahmachari phase of life. I actually made a joke to Meghna the other day. I said, don't look any of the boys in the... Yes, I told her to do like that. Why? Because this is how, and I know Meghna's very dutiful and she'll do it. Why? Because this will prevent any type of problems. This is how Cupid acts. As soon as the eye contact is there, it's a very big problem. So I knew exactly how I could provoke. Meghna's so dutiful. I knew, just don't look any of the boys in the eyes, and now she's like that. Very good.
That's where they wear the shawls and cover their faces.
That's right, yes. And all traditions. I mean, you still see, I see some Amish and Mennonite people around. Even in Costco, I saw the other day. And they have the bonnets and they're fully covered and they're chaste, they're not revealing all. In Muslim culture, some only, you could only literally see a slit in their eyes. It's wild, but actually why? That it's to prevent all kinds of Cupid acting, and so
want to expose the ankles.
yeah, not even the ankles, things like that. Even myself, I find when my wife, sometimes my wife will walk around or she'll wear like a Western dress or something like that, and I'll just see like her ankles or her legs out or something, or even like it's very common for a girl to have like the top of the chest open.
The cleavage.
Yeah, or something like that, and I see my wife like that, and I'm like, what's going on here? And she may get like a little self-conscious or something like this, But why? Because it's protection. It ultimately protects them because these are the things, and the modern politically correct culture is like, well, men should control themselves and things like that. And yes, maybe you're right, but they're not. They're not controlling themselves. This is the issue. It's
Nature of the beast.
yeah, that's actually what it is, because people are animal-like. They just completely go on instincts, and they're like and then they run. They see a pretty girl and some skin is exposed, and then they run. But in the West, go to the beach, and everyone's practically naked, or things like that. In Europe, they go actually naked, I think.
That was the hard part of living in LA, actually, going to the beach and stuff. It was like, really?
Yeah, it's very difficult. Very difficult. But this is our so anyway, and almost everyone is conquered by this mundane lust. But Krishna actually isn't. And the women, they have the topmost attractive features. Everybody looking, these women are the topmost beautiful women everyone is ogling. But he's not controlled by that at all, actually. But due to their desire to have a relationship with the Lord, he actually, due to their bhakti, that's what he's attracted to. He's not attracted to all the external attractive features. So anyway, let's hear what he says. Everybody, the whole universe is moving, being agitated by Cupid's arrow. That's how everything procreates and continues on. The activities of the world are being carried on by the central attraction of male and female. A male is searching after a mate to his liking, and the female is looking after a suitable mate. That is the way of material stimulus, and as soon as a male is combined with a female, the material bondage of the living being is at once tightly interlocked by sex relation. And as a result of this, both the male's and female's attraction for sweet home, motherland, bodily offspring, society, and friendship, an accumulation of wealth becomes the illusory field of activities. When you find yourself, maybe Craig, you already know it, but Tanmay, when you find yourself, there's a lady enters your life, and then next thing you know, you're getting married, and then even like having children and all these things. These become, home, motherland, offspring, society, friend, all these things become very prominent. And you're not free from it. Nobody's free from it. I'm not free from it. But it's an illusory field of activities. With good information, we can know this. And thus a false but indefatigable, pretty much without end, a tireless attraction for the temporary material existence, which is full of miseries, is manifest. So you get attracted to all these things, but all they do is just cause misery after misery after misery. So any married man, they know after a long time, yes, wow. Now look at this misery, but it's not their fault. It's not, women cause men, it's women's fault. No, it's our attraction to all these things based off of the relationship with the women that causes the misery, actually. And it's not our fault that, they do. It's their attraction to all these things. This is the Lord's perfect nature. Those who are therefore on the path of salvation, for going back home, back to Godhead, are especially advised by all scriptural instruction to become free from such paraphernalia of material attraction. and that is possible only by the association of the devotees of the Lord, who are called the Mahatmas. Cupid throws his arrow upon the living beings to make them mad after the opposite sex, whether the party is actually beautiful or not. Even like, he'll say it. Cupid's provocations are going on even among beastly societies, who are all ugly looking in the estimation of the civilized nation. There's like Aboriginal tribes, or even like, I don't know if I used to be in like the hippie kind of crowd, and there's some really interesting sects of hippie life where everyone's real beastly, all the hair is grown, and women, men, everything, and it's just like real, like kind of feral. But at the same time, it's not attractive at all to most of us in the, you could say, more civilized society, but and not that we're so beautiful ourselves, but still there, male and female attraction, it's very prominent even there. Even if a woman's got armpit hair out to here, no problem. So, man, I hope like people don't get really offended by me online. but anyway.
Well, it's true though.
Yeah, sure.
They're just empirically, they're not attractive.
Yeah. But to the civilized, to most of society, they're not. But still, in that kind of feral group, what are they called? The Wooks? I don't know. Maybe you guys don't know about that.
But even when you're out and about and stuff like that, you see couples that are very unattractive, but you can tell.
Yeah, they love each other. They're into it. They're very into each other. But that's how Cupid works. Thus, Cupid's influence is exerted even amongst the ugliest forms, and what to speak of the most perfect beauties. Lord Shiva, who is considered to be most tolerant, was also struck by Cupid's arrow, because he also became mad after the Mohini incarnation of the Lord, and acknowledged himself to be defeated. That's a later pastime in the Bhagavatam. Cupid, however, was himself captivated by the grave and exciting dealings of the goddesses of fortune, and he voluntarily gave up his bow and arrow in a spirit of frustration. Such was the beauty and attraction of the queens of Lord Krishna. Yet they could not disturb the transcendental senses of the Lord. This is because the Lord is all-perfect Atmaram, or self-sufficient. He does not require anyone's extraneous help for his personal satisfaction. Therefore, the queens could not satisfy the Lord by their feminine attractiveness, but they satisfied him by their sincere affection and service. So it's not the externals, it's the internal, it's the bhakti. That's why we're cultivating bhakti. It's that's how you conquer the Lord. The Lord is completely Atmaram. He's like, oh, yes, very beautiful, no problem. He'll continue on with what he's doing. I remember one time, before I met my wife, I couldn't even believe this happened to me. Somehow or other, one of the boys who came and was working with us at the Bliss Kitchen, I was a devotee, I was a practicing devotee, but he found this extremely beautiful woman who was like a yoga teacher into like all kinds of stuff to maybe come and help with the stuff. And I had to interview her because I was kind of like the manager of the yoga studio and things like that. And I just remember she was so beautiful, at least maybe I was really lusty back then, or who knows, I may not have even think she's that beautiful now. But I just remember thinking she was so beautiful, I almost like my mouth I'm like gaping over, like almost drooling over this girl. And I'm like trying to control myself, but I couldn't. I was just that captivated by her beauty.
Interview's over.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't even remember what it was. Actually, thank God I never saw her again, because who knows what kind of stupid thing I would have tried to do. But yeah, I remember it was literally crazy. I couldn't even fathom why am I I was trying to control myself. I'm a practicing devotee, but I just completely conquered by this beautiful person. But this is actually the Krishna, he's beyond all that. It doesn't matter how beautiful you are, but this is what he's attracted to, the sincere affection and service, or the bhakti. So only by unalloyed transcendental loving service could they satisfy the Lord, and the Lord was pleased to treat them as wives in reciprocation. So naturally, by their very deep bhakti, that beauty was manifest. All the good qualities of beauty were manifest. But ultimately, what was fueling the relationship? What fuels man and woman relationships is usually the beauty of the other, or at least in comparison, what that person thinks is beauty, depending on the modes of nature. But in the Lord's relationship, it's the bhakti, it's the love and affection. So they had very high bhakti, or they wouldn't get in that position. Thus, being satisfied by their unalloyed service, only the Lord reciprocated the service, just like a devout husband. Otherwise, he had no business becoming the husband of so many wives. He is the husband of everyone. But to one who accepts him as such, he reciprocates. This unalloyed affection for the Lord is never to be compared to mundane lust. It is purely transcendental. And the grave dealings which the queens displayed in natural feminine ways were also transcendental, because the feelings were expressed out of transcendental ecstasy. It is already explained in the previous verse that the Lord appeared like a mundane husband, but factually his relation with his wives was transcendental, pure and unconditioned by the modes of material nature. So again, to kind of conclude, the Lord, it may appear, oh, he's a lusty man, 16,108 wives, Rasa Leela, all these millions of gopis, he's dancing and exchanging all these intimacy and things like that. But it's different. Why? It appears one way, but the way, when we want to, what's to speak of 16,000 or millions, we just want to maybe enjoy one, or maybe if we're a player in this world, we've got to count, 30, 40, 50. 100, it might take many years and so much endeavor, blood, sweat, and tears to accumulate such, a number. I kid you not, this is it's a thing. Me and other young men, we used to have our count. We call it a body count. It's disgusting, actually. But this is, when Craig's looking down, he's like, yes, I think me and my, maybe, he's seen something similar in his past. Maybe. But this is mundane and futile, but we're trying to extract a little bit of enjoyment here, and then actually, I've even seen it myself, the beauty of, I used to have so many crushes, so many unfulfilled desires in the material world, and I'm like, I want this one or this one or this one. But actually, as we all get older and things like that, and especially people don't necessarily have great habits, all that beauty fades, and I look back and sometimes I see a picture on Facebook or something of someone I used to be very attracted to, and I'm just like, oh my God, thank goodness. Thank goodness. Because that would be horrible to have to look at every day.
Doesn't it amaze you though how, when you've experienced enough of that, it's like the mule eating the bush, the prickers. They keep doing it even though it's painful because they're tasting their own blood. I mean, it's like, why do we keep doing it? The misery is there, and yet, maybe the next one will be just right. Yeah, we just don't see it. Well, actually, Devaki Devidasi was talking about this, and I've heard this talking about even in devotee life. Sometimes you see devotees that are getting married again at 65 years old, or something like that. And why? Because she was saying, and I've heard this before, that there are certain lessons that have to be learned in the Grahastha ashram, and if you don't really viscerally learn those lessons and make really deep spiritual advancement, that attraction still remains. And even though you might even know it's like chewing on thorns, but still, because you didn't go through the process, you didn't really you're still, that attraction is there, even though it, I don't know, I saw something the other day about Leonardo DiCaprio is really well known. This guy, this actor, he's the Titanic guy. And he's really well known for, he has relationships with young women. And now he's 49 or something, and now he's in a relationship with a 19-year-old. And now, and people are, every time this happens, and it probably happens every year or something like that, and everyone is complaining. But, he'll just keep having to learn his lessons, and this time he'll have an even older and more frustrating body. 49 wasn't what it was at 39, it's not what it was at 29, and so on. And, and eventually he'll be like a Hugh Hefner type of guy, 78, and still with the
young man, hey, honey, get over here, It's crazy. It's nuts. But you know what? People aren't learning the lessons. But devotees have the opportunity, but even in devotee life, if we're immature devotees, or if we don't really take it that seriously, we won't learn the lessons, and we'll still become attracted. And even if something like that, like a lot of times devotees are also getting divorces, things like that. Totally not recommended. Actually, interesting thing, when I got married, we got married in India for the first time. We had an American wedding too. When we got married in India, I remember some Indian man, he came up to me and my wife, and he said, remember, there's no Hindi word for divorce. It's like, oh. But it's just not acceptable. You marry, you make a vow, you honor your vow. It's unacceptable.
But even in the Bible or something, there's something, God doesn't recognize divorce. In other words, you're still considered to be the spouse of that other person, even though you technically divorced.
I don't know. I know in the Hebrew law they made injunctions for divorce, but it's never recommended. I mean, there's also injunctions that once a man and a woman in the Bible, they marry, they become one body. And Jesus referenced this because someone asked Jesus about divorce, and he was giving this analogy, and I maybe could review that. But yeah, it's totally not recommended in any religious system, to divorce. But for whatever reason, let's say you do separate, because in the Vedic system, you don't like divorce, now I'm going to get another marriage. You would separate due to, all right, the next ashram is here. It's time to separate. The women usually are more attracted to the kids and family life, and they'll do better in that environment. And the men, it's time to, pursue the absolute truth and kind of separate yourself from that. And there's ashrams to how to do that. The Vanaprastha ashram and sannyas ashram is a complete detachment, complete severing the connection. So, but yeah, it's we're seeing, even in our devotee culture. I mean, I've seen a few, like, Prabhupada disciples. This doesn't matter, like 65, 70 getting married again. Like, not against them, maybe they still have more to learn in the Grahastha ashram, but ideally we take the lessons in the certain time frames of life. But anyhow, we have to distinguish between the mundane lust and then ultimately what this pure, I don't want to say lust, but this is actually pure love, this prem that can be reciprocated between, if you are very attracted to the relationship of lover and beloved, there is scope for that in eternity. Actually our acharyas love this mood. This is very much the prominent mood of all of our acharyas. But we have to understand, this is the perverted reflection. It'll never give us happiness here. We're all looking, Craig, me and you have found and have seen what it actually is to some degree. You boys are looking and still bewildered and looking and looking and looking. But look this way. The Lord will fulfill all these things. No problem. If you need to go through life with a wife, she will come.
You guys have a head start a little bit because of your involvement in Krishna consciousness. You go in more educated and things like that, and it's not as, my growing up and stuff, there was none of that,
It was lawless,
So you become reckless, actually.
Yes. So you guys have a huge head start, but also, maybe you're not going to be lifelong brahmacharis. It's almost certainly not. Tanmay, your kind of career and circumstances, it seems like it's an impossibility. And then Michael, even your who knows? Maybe if you want, it's possible for everyone. You can detach from all these things. I'll go back to India.
For most men, married life is actually probably right.
Yes, 98 or so men.
And that also, like, he will only arrange now, like Krishna, if marriage has to happen or brahmachari, like that arrangement also, like Krishna knows, right, what will be better for all the
You'll
people.
choose. It's not that, well, he'll always recommend, but you have to be given honest assessment of where you are in the levels of attraction to the material modes of nature. And if you are attracted in some way, if Cupid has some influence over you, it's better you get married. If you're finding that you're influenced by Cupid and you're not able to be in an environment to stay strong, like anyone who's coming here, and just natural, you're seeing me and my wife have interactions and things like that. It's natural. You're going to also maybe feel desire for that thing. It's just inevitable. But
It has to be right person also, no Prabhu. Then it will be like
yes,
marriage and divorce.
yes, it has to be. It has to be the right person. They should be Krishna conscious. If it's not Krishna conscious, I would run for the hills. But yeah, oh my gosh, what a disaster that would be.
That will happen.
But that's kind of implied. If you choose marriage, it can't just be anyone off the street. Oh, she's single. That's craziness. But it should be somebody who's appropriate, who you can actually work on bhakti together, and you can work through this thing. You'll get old together, you'll lose your material beauty together, and you work through this thing. That's the whole grihastha ashram. So anyway, it is probably recommended for most of us, but not required necessarily, but it is almost certainly recommended. So anyway, these things are some of the topics we talked about today. But yeah, just keep going with your bhakti. If you meet somebody and the attraction is strong, and okay, how can I do this to serve Krishna? That's grihastha ashram. Get married and establish Krishna in your home. You have deities and things like that. For instance, Craig, you got married long before. Well, maybe no, you had Krishna consciousness, but maybe you got married. But look, somehow your Krishna consciousness manifested through Michael, and so Michael.
Well, with my wife, she understood certain things even early on that the way I was about certain things, but in married life itself, with the money in the house and the kids and all that, kind of disrupted it for a while. But
Yeah.
where we're now at, it's actually she knows what Michael's doing, and it's more than just tolerating now. She's actually asked questions and stuff like that.
Yeah, she's going to make significant advancement, and she eventually will become more and more Krishna conscious. Whether that manifests as her becoming a devotee, getting initiated, anything like that. That's another thing. But but she's going to become more and more Krishna conscious, and that's it. I mean, especially when her son is now Krishna conscious. There's no.
I mean, our relationship's probably the best it's ever been, right?
I'm sure it is. There's no way you can be deeper in your Krishna consciousness, and your relationships won't improve, of course, because the false ego is diminishing. And now, so all your relationships, yes, it's a process, but the false ego is diminishing. It's dissolving. That's by practice of bhakti, more and more, the false ego will dissolve and the real ego will arise. But it takes some time, but it's a process, and it's guaranteed to work. So by regular hearing of the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, almost all that is troublesome to the heart, which was created by the false ego, will be completely destroyed, and loving service, which is the real ego, for the personality of Godhead, will be established as an irrevocable fact. False ego gone, real ego coming in. But you have to regularly do these things, hear the messages of Krishna, and then serve the pure devotees. And if you do like this, you're guaranteed success. So, anyhow, Hare Krishna. And then no questions, anything? We did a lot of discussion.
Well, I want to make just one simple comment that before coming this morning, my mind was definitely in 10 different places, worrying about this, thinking about that.
Yeah.
And what I like about, especially Bhagavatam class in a small group like this, all that just kind of washed away temporarily, at least for the time being, and thinking about this, it's a really amazing things to me sometimes.
Yeah.
Because I have such a terrible mind.
We all do. Yeah, I mean
I
it's
also felt that, like sitting for the class, it just
yes.
the truth is being shown, so all the other things just get
It is.
Yes.
like it's just wiped
it
away.
makes everything else kind of go.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes, and it does it for me too. It's not just like wow, like I have some mystical ability. No, the mystical abilities we're plugging into the Bhagavatam. That's the mystical process here. It's not that
But it
you know.
helps settle my mind.
Oh yeah, that's there's guarantee. I mean, even yesterday I was kind of wasn't like chastising Michael, but I was telling him like a lot of times you're so busy in the kitchen, been doing this, that, and the other thing, but like sit down and hear. It'll be better for you if you can just sit and actually hear the Bhagavatam, especially we had like Devaki Devidas or hear these things. If you need help, we'll help. We get Tanmay, we get everyone together afterwards. We can take care of whatever needs to be taken care of. Sometimes it's time sensitive. Like in the program, the prasadam's got to be offered. Even now, it was a little time sensitive. We were late. But, do whatever you can to get in here. It's a very important process, And yes, our services are very important, but this is the first service, is that we hear. If we don't hear, then all the other things we want to do afterwards, they don't have as much effect.
At the house, Michael used to, whenever he was cooking and stuff, he used to play, music, Krishna music,
Mm.
for Prabhupada preaching or something like that. So
Yeah.
it was good.
Yeah, it's still he's still doing like that.
We still do that.
Yeah, he's still
I
doing.
don't know. I mean, because obviously I'm not here. So
Yeah.
I don't know his practice.
I'm talking about a lot of times when we're in the programs, he's so he's eager to serve and he wants to make sure everything's happening nicely, and he's supporting the programs always. But sometimes he's losing out on his own very essential thing, where to actually hear, like when my Guru Maharaj was here, or when Devaki Devi Das, especially when we have like guests, like it's a rare opportunity. Get in there and hear. We'll take care of everything. Don't worry.
However,
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
most of you have, when they learn I'm Michael's dad, Devaki said it, and the Guru Maharaj and stuff.
Yeah.
They commented to me how wonderful
Yes.
he
Yes,
served
absolutely.
them and treated them.
Absolutely, and he's doing.
She's just out now.
Yes, he's doing a wonderful job. But
Not to inflate your ego.
Yeah.
But that's true. They all commented to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's evident he's taking this very seriously. It's evident he's taking it very sincerely, and I think, I don't know, he may be taking a very even more of a big step very soon, but yeah,
Becoming initiated.
he has to decide all these things, but anyhow. Yeah, but the main thing we shouldn't get so caught up in everything else that we forget this very, very important process of the Harikatha, hearing, and then also speaking. This is very important. Sometimes we can get caught up in so many other millions things. I got so much seva to do. We do, yes, everyone does, but don't lose the essence. So the main thing, yes.
This makes me think about, I've heard something, every activity we do should be revolved around hearing and chanting.
Yes, it's so important, and and like if we're in a program and you're doing services, I mean, I've seen many times over where pure devotees, are speaking, and there's so many things happening, and like someone's got to be in the kitchen cooking, someone's got to be here doing this and this, and they might miss out on something, but that person will give special mercy and attention to that person who's doing like that. But if you have the opportunity to hear, get in there to hear. That's the essence. And even if you have to do everything hours earlier so that you get that opportunity to hear, don't miss out. So these are, also the things. Sometimes it's unavoidable. Anyhow.